High up in the Andes Mountains, these riders on horse and muleback are following the trail marched 200 years ago by the Andes Army. Their goal here is to reach the border of Argentina and Chile to pay tribute to the historic military feat led by the Argentine General San Martin, who was accompanied by the Chilean Bernardo O'Higgins in one of the most important chapters in South America's independence wars. The journey remains as risky today as it was 2 centuries ago. Riders would traverse high altitude. They would face sub-zero temperatures at night and have to navigate narrow paths that fall away to steep precipices as they recreated a journey that is one of the cornerstones of the shared history of Argentina and Chile.
Para los argentinos particularmente, para su historia, el cruce de los Andes es el ícono de los íconos.
Edgardo Mendoza is a local historian who discovered in the archives that San Martin led the army across the Andes from San Juan. He himself is no longer able to take part in the expedition. He's still a much-loved local character and an eminence on the Andes crossing.
Si te ubicas justamente en la estrategia militar de la primera mitad del siglo XIX, es uno de los grandes acontecimientos. A veces se compara esto con el cruce napoleónico de los Alpes. Ahora, Napoleón, cuando cruza los Alpes, la máxima altura que alcanza es unos 2.800 metros sobre el nivel del mar. San Martín, en varios momentos, su ejército va a estar a alturas muy superiores a los 4.000 metros.
Almost all cities and towns across Argentina have a statue of General José San Martín. He is perhaps Argentina's most celebrated independence hero. Streets and schools are named after him. The most popular football team here in San Juan also takes his name. After helping secure Argentina's independence in 1812, San Martín then turned his attention to securing the region's independence. To do so, the viceroyalty in Peru must be taken, and first, Chile must be freed.
Normalmente los ejércitos, avanzan para conquistar, que no se marcha para conquistar, no se marcha para castigar, se marcha para restaurar la libertad para que otros sean libres.
Using his military skill and knowledge, San Martín planned the audacious Andes crossing. Ever since 2005, the provincial government has organised the annual journey that retraces the exact same route that San Martin's army took. In conjunction with the Chilean authorities, it's to pay tribute to the crossing. And this year's bicentenary made it a historic event for the city and for the region.
Hice 9 veces al cruce, desde el 2005 hasta el 2003 ininterrumpidamente. Cada cruce fue una experiencia distinta, una sensación distinta.
José Luis Gioja is the former San Juan governor who began the tribute to San Martín. Only a helicopter accident has since stopped him taking part.
La historia no es que hay que revisarla, la historia hay que descubrirla siempre, y hay que contarla tal cual es. Y la historia de la gesta sanmartiniana era como que no se había escrito, y era como que no la sabíamos.
Better known as Pancho, Luis Marquez has ridden every Andes crossing since 2005 as part of the organising committee. He says what lay ahead was not just a physical test.
Mental, totalmente mental. Si no, yo no lo podría hacer. Hay que absorber un montón de sensaciones, lo que decía, el miedo, el ir a un lugar que uno no sabe qué es, adaptarse a un medio al que no se está acostumbrado, que es un caballo o una mula, y además, o lo peor o lo mejor, según se tome, son las horas que uno tiene consigo mismo en el medio de una inmensidad donde uno empieza a comprender que no es nadie.
Leaving behind the 40-degree heat in San Juan, the group stays at this base. It's the first contact with the hot and dry wind known as the Zonda. There's the first view of the mountains. the last chance for a phone call home, and also the last opportunity to sleep in a bed for several days. After the ceremonial flag raising the following morning, and with the music of the band in our ears, vans ferried us along the final stretch. The Argentine tea, mate, helped fill the silence as we imagined what lay ahead. "200 years ago, San Martin crossed with more than 5,000 men, 10,000 mules, 1,500 horses, as well as artillery to fight a battle once they arrived in Chile. For sustenance alone, they took over 400 cows. Here, there were just over 200 people, almost all from Chile and Argentina. It was still a major operation. The first stretch after leaving from Manantiales was a 5-hour ride, gradually climbing up through the valleys. It was soon clear we would be at the mercy of the elements, with wind and rain slowing our arrival. Mules would be carrying our bags and tents. The difficulty of the terrain that lay ahead meant that not all these animals would return. As we set up camp, and as night fell, the temperature dropped suddenly. In the dark, one refuge provided light for dinner, and music kept our mind off the cold that dropped to -10 degrees.
Toma mi guitarra y dulcemente, cántame con ella una canción que quizás sea tu pureza y eternamente lo sea, pues todo Dios se recrea en tan.
Day 2 would be one of the most challenging yet spectacular of the crossing. The rain made way for strong sun. What awaited us was a steep ascent to the highest altitude of the journey. As we climbed, the horses' and mules' nerves and bodies were tested. As the air thinned, we reached the imposing view at the very top of the Andes.
We're at nearly 5,000 meters here. You can see Aconcagua, the highest mountain in South America, behind me. Now, choosing this route through difficult terrain and high altitude was all part of San Martin's strategy.
200 years ago, the Andes army split into 6 columns, and the section led by San Martin opted for the hardest route to use the element of surprise. On this crossing, there are 2 descents that are as famous as they are feared. Here, El Espinacito Pass. Once over the peak, a steep precipice falls to the east, and from the west, fierce winds batter riders. The route remains the same as centuries ago. Many riders have fallen in previous years here. Some now prefer to walk, until finally reaching the valley below. And ahead lies several hours trekking through vast plains until finally reaching the second base. Under the stars, groups divide up. Some recite traditional poems. Some sing folk songs. Some simply take a back seat to catch their breath. The next day was time for rest, to refuel and to recharge. It had been an exhausting 2 days for the riders and the horses alike. The altitude, fierce wind and sun, the low temperatures and the hours in a saddle had all taken their toll. Awaiting us the following day was a hike to the border with Chile, another challenging climb. authorities from both countries would be taking part in the joint event in the windswept border between Argentina and Chile. As the national anthems rang out, emotions ran high. This initiative is as much to celebrate 200 years of the crossing as to build the political, social and economic relationship between the two regions and the two countries. Leading this crossing from the Argentine side was the San Juan governor, Sergio Oñac. He says today's political leaders must take inspiration from San Martín.
Aquello fue una gran gesta de liberación. Hoy esa gesta, la liberación la tenemos, somos países libres, Chile, Argentina, lo que tenemos que transformarla y hacerla mutar a una gran gesta de integración.
The San Juan Vice Governor Marcelo Lima has also taken part in every crossing since 2005.
Nos unen con nuestros hermanos chilenos lazos que tienen que ver con lo histórico, con lo geográfico, con lo político y con lo económico, y sobre todo con lo cultural. Este macizo cordillerano no nos separa, sino que nos une.
Those people here had made it through altitude and dangerous routes. Yet along the Andes, there is another type of crossing taking place. Inflation and high prices in Argentina mean just across the mountains are much cheaper prices. Every weekend or public holiday, traffic jams of over 10 hours are reported as people in desperation travel to find cheaper prices as the economic downturn in Argentina bites hard.
Fue un año muy difícil para la economía nacional. Esperemos que este año 2017 la economía pueda fortalecerse, podamos recobrar la esperanza de que en este país pueda haber lugar y espacio para todos.
One of the most ambitious public works in South America is due to begin soon. A tunnel will be built between Argentina and Chile at Agua Negra. The Inter-American Development Bank is releasing up to $1.5 billion of funds to build the 14-kilometer tunnel.
Obviamente va a potenciar la posibilidad de que podamos ahondar en nuevos espacios económicos, políticos, turísticos, sociales, culturales, y que eso genere mayores expectativas para sanjuaninos y coquimbanos, en definitiva, para chilenos y argentinos también.
These countries have a mixed history. Under the military rule in the 1970s, there was almost war. But on this journey, many authorities were keen to stress how links have improved between the two.
The fact is that we never fought against each other, and there are very few countries that can say that. It is simply incredible that in 200 years of independence of the two of us, we've never had a military conflict against each other.
The Chilean consul in Mendoza, Juan Pino, also took part in this Andes crossing.
Hay algo que está y prevalece en el alma nacional, en lo más íntimo de nuestros pueblos, que explican que no importando los años ni los gobiernos que han sucedido, sin embargo, todo ha sido un avance permanente.
This is the third longest land border in the world, but regional integration is still work in progress.
Nosotros veníamos a honrar la memoria de General San Martín, una persona que ha sido fiel a la patria grande.
José Arocena was one of 3 congressmen from Uruguay taking part in this crossing. He says regional trade blocs like Mercosur have failed to improve the economies of South American nations that still rely on exports of raw materials, and the political class is still in debt to its voters.
Sigue habiendo intereses políticos por encima de los intereses de los pueblos.
With the big questions about regional integration in our minds and the example of these countries' independence heroes, what lay ahead was the return to San Juan. We had crossed the Andes, but we would be turning back, and the return along a different route was filled with danger. Sonia Sanchez is one of the doctors on the trip.
Con fracturas, con algunas heridas leves, algunos hemos tenido que trasladar. Hemos tenido en alguna oportunidad, hemos tenido fractura de costilla, pero todo solucionable y poderlo evacuar, que es la única manera de poder salir de acá.
San Martin's army took a portable hospital and a surgeon to deal with injuries sustained on the trip. Today, there's no cell phone coverage for the entirety of this journey. The only way to contact San Juan is via satellite phone. And on this Andes crossing, several people were flown back after being injured.
Me esperaba un camino difícil, por supuesto, pero no tan difícil, tan vertiginoso.
After being thrown off his horse at the border, journalist Maxi Acosta was one of those flown back by helicopter to the city.
La saqué barata porque no caí sobre tierra, sino que no caí sobre piedra.
This San Martin route is not for the light-hearted. The infamous La Honda awaited. In another tough ascent, the animals struggled with the thin air. They stopped every few steps to catch their breath. Once across the peak came a long descent until the most dangerous part of the journey. Crossing the Andes is a physically demanding and even grueling experience. For us, it was 6 days that offered a glimpse of what the Andes army had endured. 200 years ago, it had taken 11 days to reach Chile and the Battle of Chacabuco. José San Martín died in exile. His battles with the Buenos Aires government forced him to leave the country and the continent he had helped to free. There are statues that remain, and so too his legacy, and so too his dream of an integrated South America.